Good evening, everybody. So at this time, we will open the Wednesday, March 18th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Please rise. What do we do? To the flag.
United States of America, and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Way out the door. Okay, so roll call. Ms. Hall, you're here. Ms. Delvecchio, you're here. Mr. Silber, you're here. Mr. Kroll, you're here. Rich, what's your name? You're here. And I'm here. Is that good, Ab? All right, we're all set. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to try and go a little bit out of order. We have one application that may be straightforward. So this is this one? Number 3?
It's number 3 on this.
New agenda. Okay, so we're gonna go with number 3 first. I'll take a motion from the commission to go out of order. Mr. Deacon, second. Mr. Delvecchio, all in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Okay, 870 Daniels Farm Road, applicant Gautam Magani is requesting a special permit to construct an addition for an enclosed connector between the existing dwelling and the detached garage to establish a 374 square foot studio accessory apartment above the garage in a resident AA zone pursuant to Article 2, Section 1327 of the Town of Trumbull Planning and Zoning Regulations, file 2609. So, good evening. Just state your name and address for the record, and then we'll pause, and then we're going to let staff give us a quick report. All right?
Sure. My name is Gautam, last name Mangnani, 870 Daniels Farm Road, Trumbull 06611.
Thank you. Okay. Rob, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This application is for an accessory apartment. There is already a detached garage on this property. The applicant is requesting to construct a walkway staircase connecting the existing house to the garage. You can see that on the plan submitted. There already is an existing space up on the second floor. It is 404 square feet, proposed one-bedroom apartment, where with the 30% requirement, a maximum, 420 square feet is allowed. There was discussion about 2 front doors, but I see from the revised architecturals, he did remove that second door on the plans. So with that being said, Mr. Chairman, I think everything is within its required
So,
space.
my famous short questions. It's within the regulations, it meets all the requirement, and it's a total single enclosure now.
Yes, sir.
Beautiful. Anything you'd like to add? That's a good idea. Is there anybody here from the public who'd like to speak for or against this application? Okay, commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Mr. Kroll,
I reviewed it. No concerns or questions. Thank you.
Mr. Deacon, Ms. Delvecchio, Ms. Hall, Mr. Silver. Hope we didn't keep you too long. Okay, hearing no other comments from the public, at this time I'll take a motion to close the hearing. Mr. Deacon, is there a second? Mr. Kroll, all in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Take a motion. Mr. Deacon, is there a second? Ms. Delvecchio. Okay, any further comment? Hearing none, all in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Congratulations. Thanks for adding to Trumbull. Okay. Now, there must be some more interesting things coming because there's a few people here, right? All right. Okay, so now we're going to do... I think we're going to go to the guys on the right side of the room, right? There we go. Text amendment. Applicant 211 Teller Road, LLC, is requesting to modify Trumbull zoning regulations by creating Article 2, Section 2.9, Active Adult Community Zone, copy of regulation on file with Trumbull P&Z office and the Trumbull Town Clerk, file 2603, continued from February 18, 2026.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. Sarah Sharp, 42 Cherry Street, on behalf of the applicant, 211 Teller Road LLC. I know that we gave a thorough presentation at the last meeting. There were a few minor changes to the original proposed regulation in response to some requests when we worked with the town attorney and the town planner to make those changes. You should have the revised version. It's sections 2.8.1.c, 2.8.10.a, 2.8.10.e. Very minor, not substantive changes.
Why don't you give us the highlights?
Okay, so the 2.8.1.c is just basically some Scrivener's edits to make the sentence read better. Originally, it just reads, if a surviving spouse is under 55 years of age, said spouse may remain in occupancy of said dwelling unit. I think that the original version had a typo. Section 2.8.10 subpart A, the original version required a completed zone change application. This is requiring a completed zone change application and an application for special permit simultaneous with any application to change property to the new AAC zone, CZ zone. And then the final section, 2.8.10E, is an addition to make clear, I think it would be required in any event, but this makes explicit that prior to submitting an application for a zone change, the applicant must first obtain approvals from the Wetlands Commission and Police Commission. We also, since the previous meeting, had received a senior housing inventory provided by staff. It was very helpful. We really appreciate that work. I think we all know that Connecticut is facing a need for age-restricted housing. There's a high demand, low inventory, and the Trumbull survey shows that it's consistent with those market trends. Footnote 6 notes that there are 0 age-restricted units currently for sale on the market, and so this would add much-needed units that will be for sale, age-restricted, 55 and up. I'm happy to answer any questions or go over anything in more detail. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to jump back to staff is there anything you want to recap on the questions that this commissioners had from the last meeting, the adjustments were made in total, in part, met everything, whatever you want to tell us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This Attorney Sharp is correct. We did meet with staff to talk about the modifications made. There was a question from one of the commissioners about our senior housing inventory, so we did submit a review of the number of total units in town, be them affordable or market rate or for sale housing, which you do have in front of you. So with all these numbers that you see in front of you, you could see that there is, I wouldn't say, with the amount of housing that we have in town, that there isn't that much age-restricted housing in town. And with this type of...
These double-digit numbers, and a couple of them, in the hundreds, but we have over 13,000 homes in Trumbull, not correct?
Correct.
Right, so we don't have a large stock of over 55, even though people hear it and think it.
So this kind of does help us understand that there is definitely a need in town. Our plan of conservation talks about it. Our housing study talks about it. So age-restricting housing should definitely be a priority in town, wherever if possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go around to commissioners. You have anything else you want to add before I go to commissioners?
No, I'm happy to answer any questions, but
Great.
I don't have anything.
Okay, Rich, I'll start with you.
Just want to thank, which Rich?
You guys work it out.
Go ahead. Sorry. First, I just want to thank the town staff for putting this together because very well done, very thorough, and very helpful. So it was good to get that data and helps to make the decision. I think we covered this pretty thoroughly last meeting, so I don't have any other concerns or questions.
Right. The attorney distracted me. I apologize. All right, Rich, good.
Thank you. I'm glad we fixed those surviving spouse verbiage. There's actually two different surviving spouse verbiages in here. I think they're different. The point is made. I'm not going to bother it. They are written differently, but the point is made. Also, 2.8.10E, that was the proviso about wetlands. I'm happy that was added in. Prior to submitting an application for the zone change, the applicant must first obtain wetlands approval. So we can create the zone today, but we cannot apply the zone until they pass wetlands. I think that's excellent because at various times we've seen applications and we're unable to address the wetland situation here. I feel very confident that now that this verbiage is in there, and indeed should be placed in other parts of the regulations to prevent cart before the horse applications coming without wetlands approval that will inevitably need it. So, I'm on board.
You know, the only caveat to that is one of the things that we do have in place is all commissions have to be completed before they come for the application. To your point, in this change, they actually have to have it before they can put it in a zone, not just the application for the development itself. So that's a plus.
Right.
That is a good plus.
That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Oh, no, on this side. You guys are both all set? Okay, Karen? You're good? Ms. Hall? Mr. Silver? You're good. Okay. Is there anybody here from the public who would like to speak for or against this application? Either one, come on up, name and address for the record. No? Okay. Go ahead. You can close up.
I don't have anything further to add. I thank everyone for their time and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Attorney Cordone. Go ahead. Oh, yeah, motion to close the hearing. Rich and Ms. Delvecchio is second. All in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, Attorney Cordone. You want to speak after the amendment?
Yes.
All right, so we will take a motion now. Mr. Deacon, what's your motion?
Motion to approve, and then we'll hear the conditions.
Is there a second? Ms. Delvecchio. Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, the Attorney Sharp had put into the record what would be the following an amendment. If the commission is so inclined, they can make a motion to amend the regulation, section 2.81C, adding the words "if a" before surviving spouse and "is under" before 55, and the words "said spouse" before the words "may remain." So that it would read, however, that if a surviving spouse is under 55 years of age, said spouse remain in occupancy of such dwelling unit. Section 2.810, adding the language "and application for special permit," and adding new section 2.810E, prior to submitting an application for a zone change to the commission, the applicant must first obtain approvals from 1, the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission, and 2, the Police Commission. We could have a motion to make that amendment.
I'll motion the amendment in.
Okay, is there a second to amend? Is there any discussion on the amended language as proposed? No. Okay, hearing none, we will take a vote on amending the original with this language. All in favor? Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now the original is amended. Is there any questions on the final proposal as now amended with the final changes? Nope. Okay, all those in favor of approval? Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you. And the P and Z states that this is amendment complies with the comprehensive plan of PSOD and have effective date of March 31st, 2026. Thank you very much. Guys, have a nice night, and we will begin. I think we can go right into our next one. We don't have to stop, right?
Chairman, I thought you were calling me up first for the straight.
Yeah. Okay, so at this time, we will call text amendment applicant Connecticut Trumbull Village LLC requesting to modify Trumbull zoning regulations by revising Article 2, Section 2.7 Village Residence District. Copy of regulation on file with Trumbull P&Z office and Trumbull Town Clerk, file 2605. Same thing, name and address for the record, and then I want to go to staff, a little bit of a recap between the both of you before we get into this, all right?
Chairman, my name is Raymond Rizzio, office at 10. Chairman, my name is Raymond Rizzio. office at 10 Sasko Hill Road.
Microphone on.
Oh, the microphone. So Chairman, my name is Raymond Rizzio, office at 10 Sasko Hill Road, Fairfield, Connecticut, and here representing the applicant with regard to this text amendment. Applicant being Connecticut Trumbull Village LLC, which is a text amendment to amend the VRD regulations. If it's okay, Chairman, while staff is going through the report, can I hand out some exhibits and save us some
Absolutely.
time?
Anything to be efficient. Rob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This application in front of you is a text amendment. A similar application came in front of this commission about a year ago, a little bit more in June. The commission denied a text amendment. The LLC is here again showing a modification to the text amendment that they submitted previously. What I'd like to do is just talk about the modifications to the VRD. For the record, so section 2.7.2.3.c, street location, that was, they added a VRD must either one, and then it just states the, have a minimum unbroken frontage except for driveways of 200 feet on a state highway or state road, and must be accessed exclusively from a state highway or state road, or two, which is a new amendment, its entire area must be located within 2,500 feet of the intersection of exit 32B ramp of the Merritt Parkway and White Plains Road, State Route 127, located north of the Merritt Parkway and east of White Plains Road. The next modification is in section 2.7.2.3E, number 3. A maximum net increase of 40 additional units over existing units may be permitted on any lot in the VRD which street location exclusively satisfies subsection 2.7.2.3C2 with no more than 20 building permits to be issued for the construction of said units within a calendar year. So, Mr. Chairman, these were the modifications that were made. So that modification for section 2 seems site, I don't want to say site specific, but pretty specific into a specific area. I would believe that, we're here for a specific potential project in town.
Yeah. To the
And-
best of your ability, whatever you can, whatever you can't, it's on them. Can you just specifically highlight for the commissioners anything that you have seen in the change in the two applications from the previous one to this one on the impact and the density and what they've worked with you for that, right?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the density hasn't really changed. The potential locations of units have
What-
been moved
And the total density is how much now?
from of the potential project.
Of their request, yeah.
It's stating 40 additional units. A maximum of 105 may be permitted on any lot in the VRD, but that's an old reg, but the new location, the new section says 40 additional units. The current plan,
So, for the people watching at home, what's the difference between the 105 and the 40 and how that's implemented?
so the 105 is the total, is the units that may be permitted in any one lot in the VRD. The maximum net increase of 40 units over existing units. So I believe that's an additional 40.
Okay. All right. Anything else for us before we have the applicant?
No, Mr. Chairman, I can't really get site specific because this is a text amendment of the zone itself.
Understood.
Other than that, just,
Yeah, no,
they-
I was looking for the difference between if there's none there, they can have 40 more.
correct.
If there's 10 there, they can have a total of 50. 105 would be the maximum. If there was, 60 there already, they could put 40, right?
Yes, thank you.
That's kind of what, I didn't want to say it, I wanted somebody else to say it.
You're
Go
also, yeah, and that's why I handed out the district reg, the actual reg, because I'm not sure that everybody has it in front of them, but you're also limited by, so the 105, I'm not sure exactly where that came out of. I think it was when the Daniels Farm Road thing was being done, but the enclave. But with this, you have to remember, there's a limitation with regard to 3.5 units of net kind of buildable acre. So if you have for example, a piece like on corner of Unity Road and Booth Hill Road, which may be 15 acres, if you net out the wetlands, you're only entitled to 3.5. So the 105 should not alarm anybody because it can only apply on a 30-acre piece. And in fact, I think your reg that you've written has to be in excess of 10 and less than 30. So I think the reason was when they wrote that reg, they wanted to limit it to the size of a property, but we have nothing to do with that. What we wanted to do was, the reg that was, the VRD was very specific as to the location where it went, and what we'd like to do is include another possible location. And we've come up with some language that you've seen. Let me just get my notes here, that basically we put it, which is, if you all have the regulation and you have I have our narrative, if you want that, I can hand that out also, but that should all be in your file. If it's easier for you to get to, I can just give you a copy of that. But it's either, basically, it's within its entire area must be located within 2,500 square feet of the intersection of exit 32B, which is, I think, one of the things since last time, I think they renumbered our Merritt Parkway exits. I think it used to be exit 50. Ramp in the Merritt Parkway and White Plains Road.
Can I just ask you a question? If you guys are working together, if you have that up on the screen, can you make what he's talking about be on the screen?
Mr. Chairman,
It's 2723 that he's reading now, right?
Mr. Chairman, also, staff developed a GIS map showing the area of possible impact to the site as well, too.
Good, okay. Got it, thank you.
And it's a maximum net increase of 40 additional units. So one of the things we dealt with staff and talked to planning and the planning office, and one of the things that they talked about was the possibility of being flooded with 40 units at one time. So one of the things that we added to the regulation was that no more than 20 building permits could be out at one time in any development. So you'd have no more than 20 units being built at one time. We also did a couple other things which was requested after the last hearing, which was we did an impact study, and we also did a traffic study. And the traffic study, I would say, typically would not be relevant here, but it would be relevant since it talks about a particular area. And this traffic study that we submitted, which I'll talk about in a little bit, talks about this particular area, what you would find. In other words, if you're within 2,500 feet of the exit ramp and it's a certain level parcel, this is what the traffic is, because there was concerns and talk about traffic in town. But let me explain, and I think things have changed a little bit. you know, your plan of conservation and development talks about alternate types of housing that were 99% developed, and finding different types of ways. For example, in this instance, a cluster housing, which is what a VRD is. It's market rate housing. It's basically a community. It's a neighborhood, but the houses are clustered, and it becomes a community and becomes a single family community. Now, why do I say that's important? Trumbull, you know, has received a lot of accolades. It's one of the hottest towns around. And what is the one thing we haven't had? We haven't had any new neighborhoods except for the Enclave in, believe it or not, 20 years. So Trumbull, always known for its neighborhoods. I was raised here in a brand new neighborhood over by Canoebrook Lake. I raised my kids here in a brand new neighborhood up by Tashua Tree Farm. And believe it or not, maybe that was the last subdivision back in 2003 or 2004 that was more than 10 lots in this town. Hard to believe, except for the VRD that was established on Daniels Farm Road. So one of the things that makes Trumbull great is the ability to have to move into this town move into a new single-family neighborhood. If you're looking to move to Trumbull and you want a new home and you want to be in a new neighborhood, it's not available to you, and it hasn't been available to you for the last 20 years. And I think that's something that's really important. Excuse me. So this gives you that ability to, once again, bring back those neighborhoods to Trumbull. Now, we did some cluster housing, for example, up on Mallet Farms, which above Tashua, and that actually goes back into the 90s. But as far as the subdivision, fronts the Tree Farm, I think, was 32 lots. That was the last decent-sized subdivision that we had in town, except for the Enclave. What I've done is given you so that you see, currently right now, in town, there's one single-family house, new construction house that's on the market, and it's on for $1.9 million. And basically what I've done is I've given you a list so that you can understand what I'm saying is this is all new construction activity that has happened since 2004. And when you go back to it, there's a huge gap from 2005 to 2022 where the Enclave came out. It tells you the type, property type, and it tells you, so if it's condo for sale, condo for sale, condo for sale, versus single family for sale. And when you'll see the similar streets, but that's what it goes back to. So that's in here. We have a real issue in Trumbull with regard to new housing. One of the things, for example, is, believe it or not, the median age in town is about 45 years old. And about 35% of the I'll take you through the impact study in a minute. I also gave you something that showed Trumbull housing analysis of Trumbull town of Trumbull. So between 2008 and 2011, where the financial crisis hit, there was an average of 140 to 220 homes. That was our peak inventory. In 2012 to 2016, which was when the recovery phase, there was typically 90 to 140 homes on the market. The balanced market, which they considered 17 to 18 before COVID, there was 70 to 110 homes always on the market. Right now, there's 21 homes on the market in Fairfield, averaging between 25 and 45, historically low inventory, and no new product for anyone to move into town and raise their kids. I think that's one of the reasons we'd like to do it. My clients, the Mahaleys, have been in this town for, and your family's been here for 70 years, probably 70 years, and own property on Booth Hill Road, and they'd like to establish a neighborhood in that area. In this area, which I was, yes, sir.
You said there's only 20-something houses for sale in Fairfield. You meant Trumbull.
Trumbull, sorry. I was looking at a Fairfield County thing. I think there's even,
That is a number that we pay attention to. There's over 13,000 homes. There's only 20 houses for sale.
Correct.
And they all may have, let's just say politely, a hiccup, because all new houses and all houses that are available are sold within a week or two in Trumbull. That we kind of realize. And
Correct.
I think we're all on the understanding of how much land is left and how much can we put and what does the market want and what does the neighborhood want and what are we going to be able to live with.
I can tell you, I was speaking to Jeff Wright today, who's one of the premier realtors in the area, and he gets calls all the time from people who want to move to Trumbull and want a new home, and he just says, they're not available. There's nothing here that's for sale from a new construction perspective. So, and the issue in Trumbull is the pricing hasn't gotten as high for tear downs. So you're not going to have like what you have, for example, in Fairfield, or down in Fairfield, or the Fairfield Beach area, where you had a tear down and people could build a new home. So you have a very old market, a housing market here. And you still have, like I said, about 30, I think I looked at 30% between 25 and 45 is the median age for people here. And what's always been attractive to Trumbull is having new product, having neighborhoods to grow up in with similarly aged kids. And we think that this would be appropriate. It's worked out tremendous at Enclave. I think that's sold out tremendously. It's had no impact on the schools. It has, and we have an impact study that we'll take you through, and certainly, and not really any impact on the traffic. I submitted a traffic report from SLR that shows this area of Unity Road, Booth Hill Road, White Plains Road operates at a level service A. And if you added 40 or so more units, we'll continue to operate at a level service A. So we believe that this has,
Are you going to present each of those two topics, the impact to the schools and the impact to the traffic, in a little more detail?
Yeah,
Or was
100%.
what you just said, that's it?
No, I gave you the study. I'm going to take you through, I'll take you briefly through the study.
So
I'm
let
also
me,
going to take you through the impact report.
okay, so that's my question.
Yeah,
So
I've given you-
tonight, for the commissioner's benefit, and for the folks that are watching at home,
Correct.
and the folks that are here, I think one of the things that we had previous, as we all understand, was impact. So the change or improvement or definition of the projected impact
Correct.
is what we need to highlight and discuss in specificity and brevity as much as that's possible.
So what I did was, Commissioners, I've handed you a thick brochure, a thick handout, and then on top of that, and they're both from Realty Concepts, Inc., who does impact studies across the state, very well qualified. And they've looked, and then I've handed you a similar one, which is smaller, which says, "Dear Mr. Mahaley," on the front, dated January 28th. And what I did was instead of going through 90 pages, we highlighted where the impacts were. And basically, this is it's dated January 26, 2026, and it's a consulting report which was in accordance with the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal and Practice. They've examined the Trumbull Town records. They've gone through, I mean, the detail in those 90 pages is incredible. But what they came to find is that there is no, in fact, to be a positive impact tax-wise, as relates to concern is always the amount of children that would be in the school versus the revenue. Part of the reason the town agrees to add senior housing is the thought being that you don't have any children in the schools and you get taxes. Also, senior housing comes with that limitation, which also restricts its marketability and restricts its values. So if you take a look at this by Stanley Gniazowski, Gniadzowski, you look at his conclusion, he talks about how lifestyle changes have impacted the residential demand. People like smaller lots. People do not want to have the maintenance and everything else. And these 42 unit single-family common interest communities have very strong attractability, and they're also, especially if they have linkage to retail, medical, and recreational services. And what they found out is that in doing this analysis, that the impact on the municipal services is minimal. The impact on the public schools would result, if there were 42 homes generating no more than 21 children, but would be more than covered by the tax revenue generated by the units, to the point where it'd be a net positive revenue for the town of about $315,000. And it talks about how we need to give more housing for the millennials. Now, if you talk about, I just want to prove out what we said. If you go to page 47, just look at I've given you the pages. It talks about the housing profile, where the population in Trumbull is, and where the The predominant range for 2025 is 300,000 to 999, representing 92% of the residences. There's about, if you go to the next page, it talks about the housing summary, total houses with a mortgage, things like that. But I want to get to what's more important is we get to page 50. We get to all right. To page 51 talks about the amount of building permits that have actually been issued in the town. And that was only 35. And that's, when they talk about building permits, you're not talking about new construction, you're talking about additions, things like that. If you go to the next page, and this is where it's important, you start to see where the housing market is, where the prices will tend to be, and where the number of houses are. That's basically a housing profile. What's next is, what's really important is page 68, where you talk about between the ages of 35 and 44, that is the age of 17% of your basically occupied unit. And between 45 and 54 is 22.5%. So you almost have you basically have 40%, the median age is between 35 and 44. And if you actually add between 25 and 34, you get to over 45%. So there is no place for those people to move into a new home. Basically, we've been focusing on the apartments, where we've added, I think, probably over 1,200 units in the last few years, and we've been focusing on adding senior housing. But there's been no new single-family housing stock added to Trumbull in the last 20 years, except for the Enclave. It talks about the occupied units, how many people traditionally reside in those units. There's a detailed profile report. What I will like to take you through, and you can look at this as you go, we talk about public age school. Now, the Enclave at Daniels Farm Road, single-family common interest community, which this will simply be, which was 30 single-family homes, basically reported to have, there were 8 elementary, 4 middle school, and 2 high school students. Basically only 14 children in the public schools out of 30 units. Basically less than half a child per student per household. When you look at that and you apply that same function to us, we're talking about the maximum you could have is basically 21 people. If you take into account personal property taxes, additional town services.
When you say 21 people, you mean 21 additional students is what your projection is?
That's what would be our projected amount. If you go to there's an impact study, which is on page 93. Takes you through very much in particular, where it talks about the average sale price, say for 3-bedroom unit would be $700,000. A net property assessment on that net property value would be about $29.4 million. When you take out the assessment, you're down to about $20 million. Basically, the estimated revenue between personal property and real estate taxes from that project or development would be, hypothetical development, would be about $775,000 to the town. If you take those school children and add them basically based on the education cost of almost $20,000 per student, the cost of additional would be $458,000. Keep in mind, there's no roads, there's no security, everything on the VRD is a private road. So typically, the only services, except for maybe some minor emergency services, the only thing you're really producing is, as far as an expense, you don't have to pave the roads, you don't have to put in the sewers, you don't have to maintain the sewers, you don't have to do any of that. It's basically the cost of education, which is more than offset by the taxes that are generated from these homes. That's basically the impact study, and the conclusion is brought very clear there that says that this actually will be a net benefit to the town. Solely from a monetary perspective. You can all talk about whether you like cluster housing or whether you don't, but you have a regulation that permits it. You've had a very successful project in accordance with that regulation that has worked, and we'd like to do the same basically on the other side of Trumbull Center. Let me take you through, last thing, I'll take you through one thing, I'll take you through some photos. SLR did a traffic study, which I've submitted to you. SLR is one of the top traffic, they've been before you, they've been recognized, probably one of the traffic engineers in the state. And they looked at the whole Unity Road, Booth Hill Road area. They looked at the crash data on page 2, which in the crash data basically shows there had not been many crash in the severity of the crashes. It talks about speed data, proposed volume. It's a very detailed study. And in the end, what they do is if you go to page, shows where all the turnings are. If you go to page 5, it talks about the level of service. And believe it or not, almost all those intersections operate at a level service A, which means that you have a reasonable period of time from any stop or any driveway to get in and out of your car. And it takes you through the peak hours, weekday peak, weekday morning, and weekday afternoon. Their summary and conclusion that the adding of 42 homes into this area will have no impact on the level of service. And people think, look, if there's 42 homes, it doesn't mean 40 cars all come out at the same time. They come out over a period of time. They'll come out over a private road. They have access to the major roads. It's not as if they'll create a traffic pattern. They have access to the highways, certainly in this area. Matt, let's take it through a couple of the photos, talking about a site that would be eligible under this regulation. So there's a site basically on the corner of Booth Hill Road and Unity Road, which if you had to lay out 40 units, you can see would sit in this area like that. As you can see, it'd be well buffered from Booth Hill Road and Unity Road. As you can see, there's wetlands. There is area for crossings. You can certainly put a much more dense project up there if you had to. You can see there's a great buffering from the road, and it all sits up basically on a high, up on a high area. The elevation change's got to be almost 20 feet to the top, correct? If you look, and then there's very few homes that surround it. So it's an excellent spot for a cluster development. I think the closest home, Matt, if you can show up in the corner there, I think it's in the top left-hand corner. I think the closest home to another home would be, 150 feet, I think is the number that I saw, 157 feet.
95.
As you can see, there's another one that's 95, and that's another one that's 187. Those are typical setbacks that you see. And when you talk about it, you're talking about maybe 5, maybe 6 homes. And the closest one is maybe 95 feet to another home versus what exists currently in those neighborhoods. So you have it well clustered. One thing that's important, I think that anybody who's in the audience has to do, we're just talking about making these changes to the regulation. All of this is up for grabs. We have to, basically would come back to you with a zone change, which you have as much or more, probably the most amount of discretion you have in your regulations is language, and zone change is based on your discretion. And then come back with a special permit. I think we would also agree to the language that you previously submitted to the other, I think the application that was before us, which stated that you'd have to get your wetlands approval before you could come before a zone change. I don't think we have any issue with that, so that you don't end up, I think Commissioner Deacon mentioned, I think that was a good idea, that you don't have a property that gets zoned for cluster or zoned for a certain thing without knowing that it can be built there. So you have the ability to review and make sure that you're approving a zone change, but that the project that you think is going to go there can go there, and not that you end up with a zone change that's eligible for something that you haven't seen. I think that we have no problem with any additional language there. So what we're basically saying is give us the opportunity to come back before you with an engineered program. It could be, you have the ability to determine how many units. You've already determined on properties between 10 and 30 acres that 3.5 units per acre is the proper number. It's worked in another part of town. It's taken these large pieces where they could have been developed in a much denser way and put quality single-family housing there that is much desired in town. And all you're doing by approving this language tonight is giving us the ability to apply to you in the future for a project. It doesn't give us anything else. It doesn't say you're going to permit 40 units, you may permit 10. It doesn't say, and then we can't even come back before you until we get a wetlands approval. Let's see what other pictures you might just want to take them through to give you a sense. I know you see that, but I'd like to show you. Keep going. So that's the kind of, and this is the kind of house, hypothetically, the type of house that you would see in this kind of development. Not a McMansion, standard maybe 2,500 square foot, 3-bedroom homes, of which in the $700,000 range, believe it or not, is what a young family's starter homes now are in Trumbull, that it would be new. But they're not overly sized, they're adequately sized. If you go to the next page, that is basically the amount of distance you have before, from this, the corner of Unity and Booth Hill, looking at a property, a hypothetical property that's, about approximately 16 acres. Matt, if you can flip the page. Believe it or not, if you're looking at that property, and I think you can barely see it, that's with the buffering and screening that was there. There's a house. Matt, why don't you circle the house that you can see? That's where that's the house that you would see in the development. We had a special person take and lay on where the current shrubbery is, and then match where a house would be that you could look at from that distance. Next page is what it looks like now. Okay, as you can see, that's it in the winter. Very well forested, an area that sits up high, and certainly is not going to have any impact on that corner. No dry wells will be coming out on that corner. That's what it would look like if you had some houses up there with additional screening, which I'm sure this commission would require. Next page. That's what it would look like as you go a little further down on Unity, correct? Looking a little further south, and before you would see, you can show where a house, that's kind of where you would see a house. So, all in all, I think this area, you got basically a 16-acre parcel that's going to be developed. It's going to be developed one way or another. We think you have a reg on the books that should apply to this property. We even agreed to limit, which is not currently on the property. Basically, the limitation is to say, please let us come back with you with a project that can apply to this site. You got a 16-acre site. It's one of the largest sites left in town. We would like to be able to develop it in accordance with a regulation that you've already passed somewhere else. We didn't come here and showing you 150 units and trying to jam it down your throat and then come back. We're trying to come with you with something that we felt you already found palatable. Apply it to this project, and let us make that presentation before you. That's all that language does, except adding an additional limitation that you could do no more than 20 units in a year. So you wouldn't have to worry about all of a sudden 15 you'd only have to worry about 10 kids going to school instead of 20 in a year, because you could never have more than 20 building permits out in a year. So it gave you a way to basically, on a larger scale project, the ability that they would be developed in not in just one big way. It would be developed in phases and kind of phase in its impact on the town. But keep in mind, in doing that, all the improvements would have to be installed also. Look, you have a lot of choices in this town. I think we made some decisions because your hand's been forced. I think the enclave has worked out very well. I think the regulation has worked out well. You have a huge demand for new single-family housing that hasn't been addressed in 20 years. This gives you the ability to do it. 3.5 units to the acre. You have a lot of that area, certainly around Thrushwood Lake and the other areas where you have smaller lots. This area is very well buffered. It's not going to be built in the middle of any other neighborhood. It's got roads on either side of it. And as you can see, there's the closest house is 95 feet away from where another house would be. And I think there was only, I counted 6 houses and most of them were over 120 feet away. And you have the ability to screen those. You have the ability to limit those. You have the ability to limit density. And then also you have the ability, no matter what, is to deny the zone change if you don't like it all. All we're doing is asking you have a reg on the books for a lot that's between 10 and 30 acres. Give us the ability to come back for a project that will be much greater detail, has got to get through wetlands, has got to be engineered fully, and then you can make a decision whether you want to grant the application or not. But give us a chance to apply and don't force us to go in another direction. That's kind of what we're looking at. And keep in mind, because of certain these lots, because of wetlands, because of crossings, because of grades, they're not, these type of lots, this type of large lot like this needs cluster housing to make it work, because you can't appropriately do single families there and get the density that should come out of a lot like this.
Okay, good.
That's it.
That might be the longest I ever let you talk without interrupting you.
You know, I gotta tell you. Thank you.
So, all right, I'm gonna go over a couple points before I go to the commissioners, because you're gonna have to come back up there, right? So, on several of the things that you said, so we have to look at this in totality, right? So, you referenced the enclave a couple times, and it has turned out successful in its lack of impact and its quality of build. But as you have pointed out, and for those that don't remember, that was built under threat, right? But what else they did is they worked with the town when the town requested and reduced the number of originally requested to get it off the ground. So for the people at home and in the audience, one of the reasons we asked for these impact studies, and we don't have negative results in the past. The impact studies are what's going to happen with the traffic and what's going to happen to the schools. When there's major builds that are coming before us or major changes, we kind of ask for that because we need the preparation, and they're required to go out and say what's happened in this town before and what's happened in similar towns with similar builds and what's the impact. And to the staff's credit and to the applicants, not these particular applicants, but other applicants in the past, the impact studies have proven true. We don't have examples of applicants coming to us in the past that show an impact study for either traffic or schools that was completely off the mark. They were wrong. How could you let that happen? It doesn't exist. So we take the facts that are here that they present, and we're going to deal with them. But a couple things I want to go over in totality, right? So the impact that we're dealing with here is the concentration that we would allow where it's currently not allowed today in whatever form or fashion it may get to, right? So for those that don't realize, we still have, when you say there's no new development, there isn't, but there is also over 200 presently approved apartments that aren't built yet in various applications around town. So those are still pending on various sites around town. We haven't seen that impact, right? We also have seen now Trumbull attract actual 830G developers who have no interest in saying, I want to come and do something a little bigger, better, faster, stronger than you allow, or else. We have the people coming to us straight from the gate and saying, we're just here for the 830G, that's our business model, right? So this commission is dealing with the total scope of what exists in the world and from the state of Connecticut and what they allow to take place here. So I don't think anybody is really worried about the street vision. I think the street vision that you spend some time highlighting on is fine. People who choose to live in there, it's fine. They're going to be nice, beautiful homes if something does come there in the future, right? So one of the things that I need to hear from you specifically is we had an attempt previous, and this commission had taken its input from our commissioners and from some of the public and from staff to say that this commission is interested and leans easier towards an over 55 development than a straight, normal, open to the public development. And I don't see that. And I don't see the reduction in the density that was also referenced in the last application. So if you would, you want to take us through those two specific points that were clearly delineated as a specific message from the public staff and this commission last time, and I don't see that that message was received.
Well, first of all, what we did and showed tonight is what could go there. Keep in mind, the VRD is 3.5 units per acre. All we did was match up to the reg as currently. So, this commission has the right to reduce the max, but I didn't feel it would be appropriate to show something that said, hey, look, this is nice and we're gonna put 20 units here and then still have 3.5 units. That's the maximum. You have the ability to change your reg and limit the amount of units by changing the reg. I just showed what can fit in accordance with the reg on this site. So the commission wishes to reduce the density, you have the authority to do it under your regulations. With regard to age restricted,
Stay there for a second.
yeah,
Is that something that this applicant that you are representing is amicable towards? Because that is one of the reasons that you have all these warm bodies behind you tonight.
yeah, I would think we would consider it, sure. I mean, I think it would be something that, if it were, 3 units to the acre, which got you probably developable close in the middle 30s, I think that would be something that our client would consider.
Right. Okay. So now let's talk about the over 55, which is, a little bit of castor oil getting the medicine down here for some of the folks out in the community for the impact to the schools, because we have so many undeveloped and already approved things that are coming. Right?
Yep,
Let me finish.
yep.
And I'm not here to try and tell your applicant how to invest their money. That's their job, okay? That's not my job. What we're here to do is to talk about what's palatable for development in the town of Trumbull. And in the town of Trumbull, over 55 is a market that sells out. And it is a market that had a soft ear last time. I'm just interested on why no additional language or acceptance or leaning towards going towards an over 55 is in front of us tonight.
Chairman, I haven't, probably more than anyone here, lived through, except for maybe yourself, have lived through every housing cycle in Trumbull in the last 40 years. We've seen where they couldn't sell the 55 and over at some point. You had prices across the street on a 55 and over project that were reduced. You had the project that took forever to get sold over on Main Street. So
I
you
don't-
had
I don't
you had
disagree,
number-
but
you
in
had a
today's
number of
world-
properties that go up and down.
Right.
But the one thing Trumbull has always been known for is its quality, single-family home neighborhoods, and that's what's made it a special place. And there has not been any of that in the last 20 years, except for one that sold out so quickly because there's been a dearth of it for years. And I think what you also do by clustering your homes, you have the ability to not just build the 1,000,008 house that's up on Porter's Hill Road, or the 1,000,004, the 1,000,005 houses that people have to get. You have the ability to actually create a neighborhood of what, in today's real estate world, becomes affordable and not just a McMansion. Keep in mind, these can only be 3 bedrooms. So it's going to restrict you in other ways of having that impact on the schools. So one of the reasons we kept with the single family is the results that came about from the impact study.
Right.
Now, if the commission requested a small percentage of the units,
Yeah,
be
now let's talk about that right
age
now while we're
restricted.
here.
Yeah.
I think what we're required to do, I asked about splitting the baby, right?
Yeah.
And what I'm told is the only thing we're allowed to do, and you can feel free to legally chime in on this one, right? Is if we did do a split the baby on some of 55 and over and some not, the number is 20%, okay? It would be up to 20% under 55, because if you declared a development 55, it's an 8-to-2 ratio. That's from the
So
state.
it would be 80%
55.
55 and
Yeah.
over, and 20%.
And that's not me. I asked Attorney Cordone to check. I didn't know whether the applicant, and this is something that maybe we put this on a pause to figure it out, because
Sure.
I asked Attorney Cordone if the applicant offered a development and said, this is what I'd like to do on a self-restriction, as opposed to us imposing, right? Because if we impose and we create language, it's an 8-2 minimum, right? Because you have to declare it 55, right? That's correct, Mr. Cordon?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Attorney Rizzo, I think that's some research we want to confirm. That was a brief look at the law.
Or what you're saying is we could propose a lesser amount with a further amendment, is what you're saying? Or is that's basically what you're saying, if you want a 55, well, an over community, the max you could have of marketable rate units would be 20%.
I believe that is what, with a brief look at the federal law, is what is required. It could go up to 20%, but I will state for the record, we need to confirm that.
Right.
But, and maybe this is what needs to be discussed with staff and over the next month. I don't think I think this is going to end up being a local issue, and I think you have the ability, it doesn't have to be a 55 and over community. You have the ability, I think, to put any percentage down self-imposed on a property. Maybe then you can't call it an age-restricted community.
I think the issue, I asked that same question, right? I think the issue is because it's not something being imposed on a property, it's being imposed on zone language. That's the difference.
Well, I would certainly look at that. I mean, I could certainly look at that over the
Right.
next 30 days, sure, and figure out if that's
I
something.
mean, as you can see, we never send anybody packing to the door. We're trying our best to work with the community, the impact, the schools, the applicants, and get everybody's opinion to see where is the best place we can finish.
Right.
And what do we need to do.
Which is why, and I think by encouraging us to do the impact study is what also encouraged us to come back with, when we had the facts and everything before you, and then you have 45% of your people in town with the median age of 45 years old, or 40, under 55 is 45% of your community. It encouraged us, and seeing then and doing the research on the inventory, it encouraged us to come back to you with
Right.
more of a market rate project.
No, I understand that, but one of the things that you didn't bring up that we hear, right, is the impact to the schools, right? Unfortunately, it's not just bodies, right? It's
don't know.
dollars, because, and let me get my part out, I'll
No, I
listen to what you
understand.
want to say, is, the increase to the budget is happening anyway. So when the increase to the taxes, it's paying for the higher dollars every year. That's without new kids.
Right.
When new kids come, so it's going up every year if the numerical value of the students doesn't go up as well. So
I think I graduated high school in 1978. I think they had 800 kids in each class, in the same Trumbull High School that was only that handled 3 grades. I think they now have 4 grades there, and I think the classes are down to more like 400 or 500 per grade. So I mean, the impact on the schools we can show a project such as this would have a positive impact for the town of over $350,000, and the kids would get paid.
Okay.
The kids would be paid for, in effect, through the taxes.
here's the plan now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go around to the commissioners, right, and we'll have a little back and forth, and we'll take 5 minutes or whatever, and then we'll go to the public, right?
Sure.
So I want to start, Mr. Krull, do you want to start with what you have?
Sure. So, first, thank you for, working with the town to try to get to the best resolution make it a mutually beneficial outcome. I had concerns about the density, but the main concern I had about the way this is written and the 2,500 feet from the end of the exit, that's going to end up encompassing basically most of Twin Brooks Park. Columbine, Shawnee, Twitchgrass, Wesley Drive, all these areas are going to end up being encompassed.
We can do an analysis
In
of
this
that for
zone.
you. Yep.
And I don't know
We gotta remember, it's
I don't
gotta
know
be-
that people there are going to want to be encompassed in this zone.
It's also got to be a property that is between 10 and 30 acres.
You know,
I don't think the town has any intention of letting anybody develop Twin Brooks Park, and I can tell you there is nothing anywhere close to in that area that's between 10 and 30 acres.
But people can,
Well, we can do an
people can
inventory for
assemble
you.
properties, right? I mean, it's possible.
You also can add having frontage on Booth Hill and Unity Road and add that language, and then all of a sudden it becomes a very, very specific regulation.
Yeah, I mean,
Look, we're comfortable with restricting it and in any way and making it so that you don't have any unintended consequences from language that you would have, I have no interest in putting together a project that could come back to haunt this town. I've been doing this for 40 years here, and to the best of my means that I could give you comfort that this is not gonna pop up in somewhere unintended, we can review that and get back to you next month on that.
yeah, that's all I want to bring up. So I don't,
I get it.
as it is, I don't think we could possibly move forward with that, at least from my standpoint.
I get it.
Okay. Rich?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question about the map. That dark green area, is that supposed to be wetlands?
Yeah.
A lot of wetlands.
Not as much as you would think, but there's a couple acres of wetlands. What do you got, one?
Okay. I know purview. I just wanted to know. Okay. So just to confirm that this application, as opposed to the one that was very similar that came before the commission recently and was denied, the only difference is the addition of the 20 per year, correct?
Well, I think
Can I go through it real quick? The additional language or no?
sure, go ahead.
Because we see the additional language changing the number of the exit and
You had to change the number of the exit.
exit 50. And then we have the 2723E Roman numeral 3, the limit of 20 per calendar year, correct?
Right.
So,
If you're gonna talk, do the name and address.
Sorry. My name's Matt Mahaley. I'm the landowner and part developer for the project. Address is 338 Unity Road. So the major differences are, one, we had the maximum net increase of 40, which caps it for the additional units. Then the building permits of 20, or 20 building permits per year. And then just the exit was changed on the distance from the intersection of White Plains and.
okay, so other than the small change and the limit on the building permits, which is
And a limit on the amount of units. Yeah.
The cap was a big
Capping the
deal.
units.
to 40 per year or adding
No,
to
it's 40 for this.
20 per year, but a cap overall of no more than 40.
Right.
Okay, so
This language for this particular one would have a cap of 40, not the total buildable, total everything. Just this would have 40
It'd
max.
still be a net, but no matter what, if we found out there were no wetlands, doesn't matter, it'd still be only 40 units.
okay, so
For
the
example, there's 16 acres there at 3.5, you could go, if there was no wetlands, you could end up well over 40.
okay, so the prior application was asking for 47 plus 3.
The
prior
application didn't have that cap.
Yeah, the prior application had a slightly larger number, but the possibility for additional acreage and additional development was ambiguous. They've taken out that ambiguity and said this would be the development if it goes forward.
Okay. The other point, we're talking about 2,500 feet, approximately half a mile. It's pretty far from the state road. I understand that the property technically could abut Route 15. Route 15 is not a surface road. It doesn't appear to be, when you look at 2.7.1, purpose of the Village Residence District. It talks about harmonious development, presumably arterial roads that it's supposed to be on, state roads. The fact that it's on the Merritt Parkway seems to be a little bit of a loophole that was never intended to meet the Village Residence District. Now, if somebody wants to develop this property, fine. But to attach the Village Residence District language, which clearly was intended to be state roads, and I understand there are some unsigned secret state roads. For example, Route 734 or 739. They exist. You drive them on every day, but there's no signs. Daniels Farm Road and Park Street. Yes, those are state roads. In fact, the enclave was put on a state road. Other than when you see the state plow go by, you'd never know. But this is not on a state road. Frontage on the Merritt Parkway was never intended to qualify as state road frontage. And Booth Hill and then Unity Road are not on any known central business district. It's not on any path going to or from a highway. The traditional definitions of a state road. Why is Daniels Farm Road a state road and only up to 25? Because it
Keep
connects
in mind,
127.
what's added there is the word either. The state road is the language that you have in there, frontage that's been there. We didn't add that language. What we put in is either, which is number 2, which takes care of your concern. So that we're not,
Understood, but
that we're not adding anything about frontage on the Merritt Parkway. That's your current language.
it's just that the establishment of this district, the original purpose was.
The purpose was really to avoid an 830G on Daniels Farm Road. I mean, that was really and the fact is, just by the luck, you had Daniels Farm Road below Route 8 is a state road, and it's not above 25, below 25 is a state road, and above 25 it's not. I mean, this was tailored specifically for a property that was the subject of a 830G application.
Right.
So I don't know that there was any global, it was the same, I would assume, knowing how, being before this commission, you being part of this commission, it was, the verbiage is such to make sure that it doesn't pop up somewhere else like we just discussed with your previous commissioner. Mr.
Right. I guess my final point would be that while I understand that we're always told, well, the commission has the final say, this is one addition to the Village Residence District that doesn't exist now. And there may be other properties elsewhere in town that aren't within 2,500 feet. But someone might have the idea to come someday and say, hey, you know what? We'd like to add 2,500 feet from X location.
You just had an application that came in to put.
Yes, but it's
to
not
put
adding to this.
townhouses up on,
it's not-
on Teller, off of Teller Road.
Apples and oranges, that's a senior housing. Right here, we just went over that this is not senior housing. Village Residence District was established with specific reasons. It just seems if somebody wanted to develop this doesn't seem like the best avenue. There are other paths than adding 2,500 feet radii around random places.
Commissioner
Yeah,
Deegan,
so
with all
hold
due
on.
respect, all your village districts have been added on to as you seem fit versus putting one global one that applied to the whole town. And I mean, whether it came to on a town hall node, whether things got advanced on the Long Hill district, that has happened every year here with different regulations
Right.
in a very conservative way so that you didn't just have these unintended consequences. And that's kind of, we're not doing anything different than has been
Yeah.
done before this commission.
Commissioner Deegan, your
Tradition.
points are correct, right? But the only thing that I would add for, clarity to move us on is that you're describing the planning and zoning process in this town and other towns. It's not something they created or they own. The addition and modification of existing language to create slightly different language to allow slightly different builds is what takes place in Trumbull in every town. So you are correct. Somebody could come in the future. We'll worry about that on that day. Let's talk about what they're trying to do today for this one for today. And is it palatable and does it need to be massaged and where are we and how we're gonna do it?
The
Let's do it.
changing of this language for this, the changing of this language sets no precedent on the changing of any other language within this town. And that I can say pretty clearly, and your town council, well, I would hope would tell you the same thing. Your language, there's no precedent setting in language. You have ultimate discretion, your ultimate authority on that to be able to carve whatever language you like and make whatever properties eligible for certain developments as you see fit.
Well, the eligibility of this property would require some significant discussion.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. Ms. Hall?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had a comment. Just in terms of our school district, we're in one of the top districts in the nation. our schools demand a lot from our kids, and part of it is the ratio amongst teachers to students. And so I would consider looking at the 55 and older just to preserve that school of excellence and why it is so desirable to be here in Trumbull.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Delvecchio?
I agree with what you said about the age restricted, if that's a possibility. And I think most of my questions that I have are related, if we get there, to this specific project. So I don't want to take everybody's time to ask those questions now.
Yeah, no,
since we're
the
talking
only
about
thing-
the text.
No, that's okay. The only questions we have now are your ability to guide what you would be deciding on later with this instruction language. All right?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Silber, I bet you have a question.
Racking my brain trying to come up with some good ones, Fred, so just so you can get
You never
irritated
disappoint
at me.
us.
Yeah. I just want to clarify a couple of things. One,
Sure.
you made a reference a couple of times to us having the control over the zone, right? The density. So, saying that we can limit to 10 means we have to write the regulation that limits it to 10, right? It doesn't mean
Well, no,
that,
you have,
because if
first
it's
of all, you
three-
have the limit, you have the strict ability to approve or not approve a zone change. So
well,
now-
I mean, if the
now- but
regulation
now-
allows something, then that limits us by a lot, right?
No, not
if,
if,
if
that's
it's
with
3.
regard to a zone change. You have the ultimate, you have.
Well, that's okay. That we're talking about
Unless
the
there's a
same thing,
mistake
the
in
zone
your
and not the
map.
project. I got, yeah.
Yeah, so the project, what I'm saying is, and I think what's appropriate, what you folks added in an application before, if you say you've got to go get wetlands before you can get a zone change, then your wetlands approval for any project before you can apply for a zone change, I mean, that really truly gives you the ultimate authority. If you ask me, because you have the ability to turn down a zone change at almost any time. And especially when it's considered typically one of these floating zones.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, if wetlands passes something and you don't like it, all you have to do is turn down the zone change.
So let me ask his same question a little more specifically, right? So if he says there's a max allowed, as you both were correct, once the language exists and you're asking put that language on this property, it now allows it. But by default, because it's a special permit, we can then restrict the number of units that get passed under the special permit.
100%.
Okay, I
You've
think
done
that
it.
was where you were going.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I mean,
And you've done it before. I
Well-
can tell you how many lots I've been in here that started out with 16 lot subdivisions and turned out with 14. Or how many, I can tell you, I guarantee on some of those apartment projects that came before you that you restricted the number of units, even though the reg required more.
Yeah.
I think you can get what you were trying to get to.
Yeah, yeah.
Under the special permit.
Thank you,
It's
Fred.
just,
Yeah.
they have the breadth. Whatever applicant applies for a zone change has the full breadth of whatever that zone provides.
Right.
And if it's by right, it's by right. But if it's by special permit, then we have the ability to restrict within that language.
Yeah, see the difference in a special permit and if we come before you before a subdivision, and I'm sure town council will agree with me, you're acting in an administrative capacity. If you match the regulations, you must approve. If it's a special permit for a condo project, a floating zone, any kind of these districts, a commercial, anything that requires a special permit, then you have the ability to limit. But with regard to straight subdivisions, what this is not, if I came before you on a 10-acre parcel and it's 1 acre zoning and I can meet every one of your regulations, you don't have really much authority. You're acting in an administrative capacity.
My experience with this commission is that generally it's a negotiated thing where if you want to limit the number of units,
Correct.
right? It's like, are you okay with going down to mid-30s, right? It's that kind of a relationship
Correct.
rather than we're not giving you any more than this. So that's part of
Yeah,
it.
that's generally how it works.
Yeah.
High, low, medium. That's the word, right?
Well, I mean, the Attorney Rizzio's implying that we can just arbitrarily and without any conversation at all decide that we're going to limit the number of units in a given project, even though the regulation that
That is,
ultimately gets passed.
but he is correct. The alternative that's not being verbalized is
Yeah.
what does that applicant then have as a choice if any commission limits something beyond what they want
yeah,
to
and
accept?
we know the choice.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what's
Yeah.
not being discussed.
Yeah. Just a clarification. It's the blue.
That's, north, see, I think if you can read it, it says east of the regulation says, located north of the Merritt Parkway and east of White Plains Road. So that's kind of why I assume that was done. Right, I think that's why.
Yes,
that-
it's
that
the
was
blue
done by
shaded
staff.
area.
Thank you. All right, so it doesn't apply to the circle. All right.
That's what-
Just to the town attorney, Jim, wasn't the Moorfield Farm project a VRD, or was that something else?
It's, 55 and older.
No, that was an age-restricted housing zone.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's funny, I wrote the first age-restricted housing project, and it was at, it's the Village of Twin Brooks.
Yeah.
That's 30 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, and it's still going strong, I think.
A bunch of modifications, with a lot of modifications.
Let me see, I had one other question. Oh, what's the this is for Rob, what's the predominant zone in that area? Is it half acre, or is it a mix, depending on what side of the street you're on?
That is, I believe, A zone.
It's mostly a double A.
Double A, so it's.
Double A, and then you have a ton of non-conforming, smaller properties that were developed. The older areas that were developed pre-zoning
So
have,
it's acre zone.
yeah, I mean, you've got Pinewood Lake over there, you've got Thrushwood Lake, you've got all.
Yeah, I'm
different-
talking about Unity, but particularly on the Merritt Parkway side of Unity. There's some small lots there.
Yeah,
But it's still an acre zone, just to clarify.
right. There
All
are
right.
a lot of pre-existing non-conforming.
All right. Because mid-30s really does get you close to half-acre zoning, but that can be discussed if an actual application comes in. But thank you.
Okay. If staff or attorney has anything to add right now, if not, then we're gonna take, you do?
Attorney Rizzio, if the commission desires to keep the hearing open, will the applicant consent to continuance until?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add that, I thought in the beginning this wasn't going to be site-specific, but since we're going to talk about this, we did meet with the applicant a few times. They did have, I believe, a few more houses there. They did have 4 more in the green area where the wetlands are on the south end. We did ask them to remove them to get as far away from the wetlands as possible. They really didn't remove them, but they replaced them in other areas. So the number of 42 units is still there. They've just pushed a little bit further back from that, the steep area in the front over there. I think they added 1 or 2 of those to the Booth Hill location, and I think 1 more in the project itself. But I know they've come in front of us. They've spoken with staff a few times too. So, there's been a little give and take, but I think that, this commission really does have the authority to kind of discuss and go over what really the impacts are on this site, if we're talking about this, rather than the regulation itself. So, thank you.
Okay, so I know there's a lot of people want to come up. We're gonna take 5 minutes and literally about 5 minutes. So we're on break for 5 minutes. We'll adjourn for right now. Okay, we're back on the record. If we could have the room back, please. Thank you. Okay. So at this time, we will take comment from members from the public, for or against, either one. You come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. I know some people use the list. This commission doesn't use a list, so whoever comes up, you just work it out amongst yourselves. And the only thing that we would ask at this time of the evening, if you have the same comment that's already said, you can say for or against for the reasons that are already stated. If you have something new to add, please feel free. So name and address for the record and your comments.
My name is Barry Younger. I live at 219 Unity Road in Trumbull. I'm coming up with statement. I'm going to let everybody else talk about why they don't want it. Since this application is site-specific, I think it would be important for the commission and for you, sir, which you're quite aware, that the drawings that they present to show that you can fit so many units on a property is better than what that is. I don't think a fire truck can work on that road that's shown. I don't think it can make either turn from either site. I don't think the hammer turnarounds are legal. I think if you went out to the site and you saw the lower green area, the grade changes are huge. And there's going to have to be a lot of leveling of property to put cluster housing in. Fred, you know that. So there's got to be a lot of work that has to be done to that site. So now when you allow the 20, are you putting in infrastructure for the 40 and telling them they can grade the rest of the 20?
So-
if you allowed all of that?
Yeah, so just quick, we try not to comment back and forth with the public comment, but very quickly, you can have full confidence that the fire commission and the fire inspector and the fire marshal will have full oversight and approval of any design and any design of a full plan, right? Because even though the applicant said as a pill to make it easier to swallow in the layout of delayed development, right?
Yeah.
The delayed development would be against a master plan. So the master plan would have to be in, and the development against the master plan is what goes forward. You don't modify it for each one that you come.
The point, I agree. I mean, you know, we both know. I agree with you. The point that I'm making, I think that drawing is very deceiving to the public and everybody else, that you can fit all that in there the way that it's shown. That's all. And the fact that the application talks about cars will be parked off-road. The application talked about 2 garages, not 1, is what I saw in the paper. Maybe that's true, maybe that's not, maybe that was a misprint. But when you think about 3 bedrooms, there could be 3 cars per household. You know, people do grow up. I do know a lot of the apartments that you approved in town were only 2-bedroom. So we are adding more volume, more people and more children. And 2 rooms allows 4 children to be in the bedrooms. It's just a point of making.
So I'm going to give you one more comment in an effort to
know,
avoid back and forth with everybody else. In today's world, it's 2026. I don't know how many people in this room or how many people in Trumbull have 3 bedrooms, and one of them is an office,
Yeah, I know.
especially post-COVID, right?
But
So
again,
3
I'm
bedrooms
getting-
are no longer 3 bedrooms.
But we're also talking about worst case. We're still adding those children. if they're
Absolutely,
children.
understood. And
All right, I won't talk anymore, but I think the drawing's very deceiving. I think if the applicant wants to come in, he's got to come in with a better drawing than that
Yeah,
to describe it to
and
people.
Thank you. And just for everybody else to
Thank you
understand the
very much.
picture of the drawing, what we're dealing about tonight, one of the things I didn't do, you can come up, but one of the things I didn't preface tonight is, I've already done it before, the process for planning and zoning, right? And you need to understand where we are tonight, right? Planning and zoning has zoning regulations. Applicants say, I have this zone I'd like to build. They come in and they apply against that zone. If the property is not in it, they say, can you put my property in that zone? What we have here tonight is a zone that does not exist. They want to create a zone. So the steps are create a zone, if it gets created, and what will it allow? The next step would be to take that zone and put it on a specific property. That would be step 2. And step 3 is when they have the actual development plan of what they really are going to build on it, they come in with the development plan. usually the application for the zone change and the development plan are done together. What you have here today, even though it's a cartoon picture, it is something for ease of understanding what the impact could be. This is not the actual development picture. This is close to it, but it is something that will allow the public to understand the impact and the possibility of where this could go. And in the real world, the reality of when somebody's doing a zone change, they always have a specific intent in mind, and we don't have to pretend we don't know. So they're giving us the possibilities of the impact for us to have real discussions. But it is not the exact reality of the exact development at this moment. I hope that helps. Name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Garrity. My name is Sophia Galino, and I reside at 40 Lefford Road in Trumbull, Connecticut. I respectfully oppose the application in Trumbull. It's been growing already at a rate of about 7.25% every single year. 2023, it had 36,000 people. 24 was 37,281, and in 2025, it was 38,544. The proposal seeks to weaken street location requirements. Their standards there exist to ensure safe, efficient traffic flow, reduce vehicle and pedestrian conflicts, and create more inviting multimodal street environment. Weakening them risks unsafe, poorly planned development. It also allows up to 42 additional units on a single lot, and while permits may be phased at 20 per year, the overall impact still remains significant. In January alone, I believe approvals included 48 units, and consideration of 2 buildings on Reservoir Avenue totaling another 150 units, and adding roughly 350 to 400 more residents in Trumbull, maybe 60 to 90 more students, and up to 1,500 daily vehicle trips for those families alone. I think I might have done about 1,000 of them myself today between my kids and trying to come here to this meeting and the various other things that I do. But I digress. Our schools are already experiencing enrollment pressures, and the Trumbull Police Department is still operating below staffing levels, if I'm not mistaken. I think we're still short by 2 or 3. And I don't think the police department has been increasing at a rate of 7.5%, or the fire department or EMS or any of those other infrastructures. Approving additional density without addressing these strains will overburden our infrastructure, our schools, our first responders. What confuses me from the attorney is that he's saying that he's talking about just changing the language in those policies. However, he keeps bringing up statistics about how many houses are for sale or square feet and children. I just looked at Trulia, has 34 houses for sale. Sotheby has 57, with 17 of them currently under contract. And the houses that he's talking about with 2,500 square feet, I grew up in a house with 1,236 square feet. We were 3 kids. We raised our children off of Unity Road in a 1,600 square feet home with 2 kids, and we did not have an office. And finally, I don't like smaller sized units and smaller sized property. I have chickens and a vegetable garden, and I'd like to keep those. So growth should be thoughtful and sustainable, and not expanding faster than our town can support. And for these reasons, I urge all of you to deny this application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Stone. I live at excuse my voice, I'm a little sick. I live at 141 Fern Circle on Thrustwood Lake, 1 acre lot. First off, Mr. Chairman, board, staff, I really appreciate you taking your time on this. I can hear the back and forth, and I respect and appreciate your unbiased position on this. I also respect the applicant, and I appreciate the fact that you want to build in Trumbull and advance the city or the town. I really do. I'm a big proponent of building and construction. I'm an architect. But I have to say that looking at the zoning regulations, I do have a couple of questions. Looking at zoning regulation 413 and the Trumbull zoning regulation, the architectural character, historic preservation, and site detail, it says, paraphrasing, basically the overall character of the site shall preserve and enhance the town's historic and rural character. Now, I'm looking around this building, which I've walked through 4 times today, that damn assessor, and I've seen a lot of pictures of historic Trumbull, but I haven't seen the enclave photos. I don't know where those are. Trumbull zoning regulation 2.7, we're talking about the village residential district. It's allowed by the planning board if it's found necessary and appropriate. Those aren't my words, those are the regulations words. If it's beneficial and consistent with the character of the town and the neighborhood. If it has 10 to 30 acres, if it does, then it allows 3.5 units per acre. The current zoning is AA, one house per acre. That would be 3.5 times the current character of the neighborhood. The Trumbull zoning regulation 2.2 is an alternate. There's, what do you have, like 7 overlay districts that you're allowed in this in the town? Only 3 or 4 of them apply. The one that the applicant chose, 2.7, allows the highest density of units to be added. But zoning regulation 2.2, the planned residential conversion zone, is a floating zone that is meant specifically for tough sites to develop residential single-family homes, which I would argue is exactly what this is. There is no linkage required to main highways or state roads. There's no linkage in any way in the language on that. That is also 10 to 20 acres, but that is a 0.7 acre per unit. That's a much lower density.
Right. I just need to help us both. If you could try and focus on your pluses and minuses for this particular application in language as opposed to what they could or should do differently with other ones.
I guess my point, Mr. Chairman, is that I feel this application is, and I look at my neighbors, this representation is pretty large, and this represents a fraction of the people who live there and a fraction of the people that will live there in perpetuity. There is concern that it's not in harmony with the current residential character. I appreciate, and the reality is, it's all about density. I think that it's our job as residents to keep the density more akin to what's there now, and it's the job of the applicant to maximize the density for profits. And I don't think I'm begrudging anybody on that. But we would ask you to be the arbiter to enforce the existing laws and not make concessions simply based on economic purposes, but perhaps on the zoning, the current zoning regulations that are in place by the town to ensure we are in the town of Trumbull, which I think would argue comes up with a density, not the city of Trumbull.
Yeah. So I'm going to try and tie you up there. But
right.
in the end, just remember that your points are correct, but you left one out. The alternative provided by the state of Hartford,
Sure.
the state of Connecticut from Hartford, that's an alternative
low
to the A
income.
and B you presented.
Totally get it.
There is a C. So this commission is always cognizant
Well,
of what we have, what's in front of us, and what could possibly be. That's just, we can end there.
But we
I
know,
got
but
it.
we do know that the applicant said that he's, as a long lifetime resident of Trumbull, that wouldn't be his avenue.
Right.
Right. Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, thank you for allowing public comment tonight. My name is Emily Mayako. I'm your neighbor. I live at 80 Oriole Lane, just around the corner. I've been in our house for, I want to say it's 13 years now, and I love my neighborhood. I couldn't believe my husband pulled me out of Fairfield to move to Trumbull until I saw the charm of our neighborhood. I just have a few comments. The first one being, it really, in a room full of neighbors, it comes across really unprofessional when you come at us with a threat to your neighbors. It felt like a threat talking about
just,
what we're not saying, sir.
Right,
It
address
just-
them.
It feels bad in a room full of neighbors. That's just my first comment. My second comment is that there's no new neighborhoods in our town because our town is already overdeveloped. People move to Trumbull because we like trees, we like chickens, we like land, and we don't like cluster homes, and that's why we live here. I have a few more points, so bear with me. I think the $700 median price is inflated. I don't think that's accurate. And I think that will affect all of the numbers as you go down. I also want to point out, and this is actually one of my biggest points, and this will go to that 55 and over community. It was about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago. I have two middle schoolers at Hillcrest. So I need to take Booth Hill Road to Strobel to pick up my kids if I need to pick them up from school. And anybody in the room who has kids that was either in high school or middle school a few weeks ago, we had to make an emergency pickup at school. Okay, we got an emergency notice at 7:39 in the morning to go pick up our kids. There was a bus problem because all the buses broke down because of the cold. Okay, I don't know how many of you are aware of this. So we had to go get our kids. My kids were already there. They had already been dropped off. My husband was at work. I needed to race out of my house. It took me 40 minutes to get to my children because of the traffic to get to my kids. And that was in a non-life-threatening or potentially really horrible situation. It took me 40 minutes to pick up my children. You start adding more families into our neighborhood, it taxes us as parents to try to take care of our kids. We cannot afford as a neighborhood to have more and more families in our neighborhoods. I'm almost finished. One thing I have not heard, and this is my final point, is I haven't heard any environmental anything in front of this committee. I haven't heard of anything that they've done to tell us what they're going to do to prevent problems downstream, prevent problems from the insurance costs. I'm sure other people will talk about this. The insurance that will inevitably go up for the people who live around Thrushwood Lake because of this development. I haven't heard of any environmental issues, which I know there will be. And sorry, this is my very final point. If we have multiple years of 20-unit housing complexes going in, what does that mean for blasting? How long is this going to happen? How many trees are getting cut down? How many animals are being displaced? Like, what are the actual environmental impact to all of us for this project that you're proposing? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Judith DeGraffenreid. I live at 323 Unity Road across the street. I know very well the traffic. You can have all your studies, and I'm wondering, well, who's funding them? Because I had to take my kid to school with all that traffic, and it's unimaginable, 40 more cars. I already had my car totaled, my beloved car totaled, going down to school. All right, this business about the state road I find very confusing because it's not like, well, within 2,500 feet of the Merritt Parkway. It's not like we have access directly from the Merritt. We are still, access is still off of Booth Hill Road and Unity Road, and it's too small. So I don't see how that has any relevance whatsoever, whatever technicality they may try to introduce. Also, I picked up on a veiled threat. Don't force us to go in another direction. I assume that's the 830G business. I'd like to clarify one point. Yeah, okay, the state passed this horrible HB 8002 and then SB 151, dreadful. They're unconstitutional. I fought those. They're unconstitutional. I would like to lay it out right now. SEPA, the Connecticut Environmental Protection Act, supersedes any statutes. So they can try, they can threaten us with 830G. Nope, it will not hold up. I will get a lawyer and I will get people to chip in with me to hire the lawyer because it's a violation of SEPA and SEPA supersedes. Now, I was looking at that picture, it's not there now. And I was a little confused because I guess it's dark green, if you could put that up again. Up at the upper areas, it looks like the houses are right against the wetlands. Is that true? Because you need like 100-foot setback for the wetlands, and I don't see that. the ones high up on the hill seemed like they were abutting directly. Now, I live across the street, so I've been on that property, and there's quite a waterways going there. When you have all that pavement, like, what? For how many houses? 40 houses, the pavement with the runoff? What's going to happen to the runoff? It's, yeah, oh, this is great, we're up a hill. Well, it's going down the hill into the water course. And I'm concerned, and I do applaud the whole idea of, well, they're going to be blasting for 20 new houses. How's that going to affect my foundation? I have an older house, 1 acre. I love my 1 acre. I bought this property. It's right on the Merritt, which is a bit of a problem. But I bought it anyway because it's across the street from a beautiful wetlands, and it's got this zoning. I bought it because Trumbull was a leafy green suburb, which was very beautiful, and it created a beautiful neighborhood, and that's why I bought it. And I'm a little mystified by some of the comments by this representative. Let's see. They want to bring back neighborhoods, and that's only why they're doing this. That's the reason. They want to bring back neighborhoods. He's destroying our neighborhood. We cannot sustain the traffic, the clear cutting of trees. What's going to happen to the animals? What about the flow, the water? It's going to be a nightmare. And another rather remarkable statement is, I'm trying to read my chicken scratch here, bear with me. They want to bring families in. Yes, it's so beatific. I just so lovely. You want to bring families in. Well, but it has no effect on our schools. What? His goal is to bring families in, but has no effect on our schools. Can somebody explain that to me? I'm just a little bit confused. I'm not going to go into the other points because I know other people are making them very well, better than I can. My main point is SEPA supersedes 830G. The state statutes cannot stand against the Environmental Protection Act. I don't know how many people know that. And I think everything else is pretty much said nicely. I do wonder about the sewer because we have this horrible, as we know, our sewer system is dreadful. We have, how much money are we going to be paying for the sewers? That's coming up. So we can't sustain more sewers. And what about the capital investments for all this? And what happens, now this is my ignorance, the roads are going to be private. What about liability? If you have private roads like the city doesn't maintain, who's responsible for maintaining the roads? And what if the developer sells it? This is an honest question because I just would like you guys to ask, what happens down the road with the maintenance of the, well, down the road with the maintenance of the roads, okay. Who's liable? All right?
Yeah.
As things change hands. All right, so that's pretty much it. Thank you very much. I find it very heartwarming that you want to bring families in and make neighborhoods beautiful again.
Thank you.
Really.
Anybody else for or against?
Hi, my name's Michael Carberry Santa Croce. I live at 20 Robinwood Road. I'm just going to go ahead and read. Good evening. I'm a project manager at Chimenti Construction and a resident of Robinwood Road. I manage multi-million-dollar construction projects where risk management and site logistics are my primary deliverables. I'm here because this proposal represents a potential liability to the town of Trumbull. The first point I'd like to make is there are hydrological and civil risks involved in this proposal. I do have a statement of technical opposition here that I'd like to share if possible. I understand if there's no back and forth. Sure. Okay.
Thanks.
The statement of a technical opposition and attached site analysis, which shows the natural pond runoff, which many people have addressed tonight, development area.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you. All right? So just for focus. Focus is on should this language to create a zone exist. That's what we're focusing on. It looks like these are site-specific development issues, and that's fine. And I would just ask you, we can hold that for the record. I don't want to tie us up with site-specific issues or the zone. It's just, should the zone exist? and those modifications, not specific impacts to a specific property for tonight, okay?
Understood.
All right.
With that said, then I would just request a safety survey be proposed for the area.
Great.
based
Thank
on
you very much.
visibility. Thank you.
Good evening. Peter Kaczynski, 22 Rollingwood Drive. I'm here to speak in opposition of the applicant. The applicant provided an impact analysis report should the zone be accepted. I'm here to challenge a number of assumptions and flaws that I've identified in the report. If you'd like to follow along, I'll point you to the page and specific items that I find to be deceitful or erroneous.
Yeah, whatever facts you have that you'd like to challenge, just go right through them and whatever you
Sure.
want.
Page 72 describes the proposed units to be developed. Specifically is listed, the homes would include a study. So your earlier comment to mention that, well, the third bedroom won't be a bedroom, it'll be a home office. Not so true, because the home office will be in the study. All three bedrooms are more than likely to be bedrooms. And despite COVID, we're seeing an immense U-turn in the work from home movement. Everyone's coming back to the office. I've experienced it this time last year. I am now full-time in the office with a limited set of exceptions. And you see many Fortune 500 companies putting out pronouncements that they're bringing employees back home, back to the office. Page 90, the applicant provides an assumption of about 0.52 students per household. They determined this by taking the 13.3 thousand households in Trumbull and dividing it by the 6.9 thousand students in town. That 13,000 figure is not exclusively three-bedroom, single-family homes. That number is comprised of one-bedroom apartments all the way down to 5,000 square foot, six-bedroom, four-bath homes. So to leverage a blended rate of 0.5 on this unique project, which is a subset of Trumbull's demographics and housing inventory, we should be using a factor more appropriate for what the applicant has specifically numerously times in their study implied, that their target market is Generation X, millennials, and Gen Z, all of which are of age to have children in elementary school, middle school, and high school. So if there were an applicant for a 55-plus community and they wanted to assume 0.25 students per home, I'd say makes sense. Seniors don't have kids or are less inclined to have kids of school age, but we're talking about them. Their target market is families, period. Families have children. Children want to come to school in Trumbull. So I would argue that their 0.5 students per household is substantially understated. Page 91, personal property taxes. Their approach is flawed. The valuations used for personal property now are based on MSRP, not fair market value of vehicles. And then they do a straight line depreciation based on how old that vehicle is from its initial year. I don't know that it's going to have a significant impact on the value that they determine as revenue bearing, but their approach is outdated and no longer applicable. The assumption of 19,000 cost per student, I'll go with that. There is an error in their study, page 92, assuming 12 students, which I think was just a flip, which they meant to say 21. And The largest misstatement and misleading part of this is the mill rate imposed in their calculation. They're using the current mill rate. We all know we're currently seeing or going through a reassessment. Give me 3-4 months, we're gonna have a new mill rate. And if it's any resemblance of what Fairfield just showed, Fairfield just announced their new mill rate, which is going down from 0.028 to 0.019. That is a drop of 33%. So just assuming on what happened in our neighbor's house is gonna happen here, if the mill rate they applied of 0.035 is cut by 1/3, it ends up being 0.023. So the revenue from this project would be $485,000 roughly, substantially short of the 700 plus that they imply if they were standing built today on the tax rolls. They're not. They won't, when and if they were built, they'd be on the tax rolls well after our revaluation and the mill rate plummets foreseeably. So if you take that 484, add the 42,000 for the cars, that leaves us with about $526,000 in revenue, minus the 458 of town service costs for the underestimated 21 pupils. That leaves us with a net gain of approximately $68,000, which is a fudge factor of 3 students, which I've already explained we're substantially understating our assumption on how many students this development's going to have. So I think I've proved my point. We're in the red here with the project, and this does not serve Trumbull well. Further, to address the impact on not just Trumbull itself, but the immediate neighborhood and the immediate schools, Booth Hill School is one of the oldest schools and in most need of renovation as far as all these schools go. Hillcrest, for its own reasons, got prioritized for renovation, but in many studies it was cited that Booth Hill was in the most need. Booth Hill is tied second in the town for highest pupil count. Frenchtown leads with 508 students, and Booth Hill more or less is tied with Middlebrook at 489 students. We're over capacity. There's nowhere to add to Booth Hill in the foreseeable years until a capital plan is hatched to expand and modernize Booth Hill. So, you know, we're going through a budget cycle now. If you spend any time attending or listening to or watching the Board of Finance meetings that occurred the past week, us parents are not afraid to pay more in taxes to cover the cost of educating our children. What we don't want is those resources to be watered down and for my share to be smaller, and for my student or my child to get shortchanged and get less than what they're due, or for me to have to pay another activity fee because it's circumventing, you know, the budget process and another means of paying for educating our children. So we come to this town because, you know, we made the sacrifice and the investment and the continued investment to stay here. We're here, all here to serve one another as neighbors, as fellow citizens. What the market wants, what the market demands, whatever's knocking at our door, we don't necessarily have to answer that. That is not our priority. Our priority is to ourselves.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Anybody else for or against?
Good evening. My name is Karen Baller. I live at 32 Ferns Circle. I am a director of Thrushwood Lake, and I've been in the neighborhood about 40 some odd years. I agree with, I think, all of the negative comments. I don't think anybody came out and said they were for it. I had similar math in my head about the 126 bedrooms minus the 42 occupied by the owner adult. It seemed like a 75% utilization rate of the extra bedrooms, because you're only going to have 21 kids, and there was going to be 84 spare bedrooms. I'm like, that makes no sense. Again, as the last speaker just said, they're marketing it to families, and I think it's probably going to be double that. And then when I did the math based on the current numbers in the report, we are going to be losing money, not making money by putting this on our tax roll. I'd also like to say, specific to what you're trying to decide tonight, I don't think this whole village district makes sense. There's other ways to go. I think it's reasonable to say something can go there now, because there is a collection of properties that have been built up over time by the current owner and the developer. But they have to understand that site is very rocky. I think it's a bad idea to put in the resolution that you're looking at that has to be done in 2 phases. We don't want to be blasted over a long period of time, hear all that construction noise. And plus it runs the developer a lot more money. So whatever gets done, let's do it quick and efficiently to minimize the impacts of the neighborhood if something does come down the line. And I also strongly feel this should be a size project that fits with the neighborhood average, and it's much less than 42. It's more like 25 to 35. And also depending on the size of the units. And as someone else said earlier, I don't understand why these have to be 2,500 square feet. I grew up in something that was, when I was young, probably about 1,200, became 1,400. And I lived with my husband in a 3-bedroom in Jersey for a few years, and that was 1,750. So let's downsize as well as minimize the number that's going to be jammed into that property. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for or against? No? Yes?
My name is Carmine DeFeo, 15 Woodcrest Avenue in Trumbull. I've probably been here more than anybody else. I've owned my house this year for 50, and the prior 20, this house I'm currently living in, my parents owned and put myself and my 6 siblings through the Trumbull school system. My comment mainly has to do with the wording in the current regulation, where it states that it is access exclusively from a state road or state highway. Exclusively here is implying it's the only way. The applicant is looking to modify that, so that's a complete contradiction of what's currently there. And as Commissioner Deacon alluded to, there's nothing that prevents another developer from accumulating 10+ acres and coming back again for a modification to this zoning to add another section to where it's off a different exit ramp of the parkway or a certain distance from a state road. So that keeps diluting what you currently have in your regulation. And the purpose of that was outlined by this commission many years ago in a previous application. That word exclusively is in there because you wanted the ability to have emergency services to quickly gain access to those developments when it was required. That's why it was put in here for state road, state highway. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here to speak for or against? All set?
Chairman, normally I would wait until, but I just wanted, because there were some allegations that this impact study, was deceiving. And I just want to bring a few facts and I'll get out of your way and we'll continue this application and hopefully hold it open. First of all, with regard to who pays for the roads, the community pays for the roads. No matter who buys, who sells, whoever lives there any of the interior roads are all paid for by the community. Most importantly, with regard to how they determine the amount of students, it wasn't some division over 13,000 and this and that. It's specifically, you have one project that was approved under this regulation, and it tracks the exact number of students that came out of that project. And that number was at 0.47, which the actual number is less than what was disclosed in our impact statement. So I just want to make it clear, they didn't pull the number out of the out of the air, or they didn't, there was no intent to.
Can we have quiet in the gallery, please?
They went to the one application. What's happening? They went to the one application that has been approved by this commission and what the actual facts are. And with regard to the taxes, yeah, Fairfield's tax basis is coming down to 0.19 mils, but the whole reason is they have a reval that jumped the property values over 40%. Trumbull did not have that property reval. I don't expect any big drop in your mill rate until you have a reval. So that, I just want to make it clear there was no deception with regard to the calculation, how they calculated the funds. This is not Fairfield. Fairfield was at 28. The properties went up 40% in the residential area average. They dropped the mill rate to 19.
Okay.
To the best of my knowledge, Trumbull, this is not a reval year.
Yeah.
I don't anticipate the mill rate maybe to, if anything, it goes up.
I just want to slow you down from that
I
part.
just want to make it clear that somebody questioned that we gave deceiving information to the commission.
I got it.
That's all, and that's pretty much all I have to say.
And while you're still standing up there, I think some commissioners may have some more comments. I want to get them out tonight if we can.
And then we can respond to it.
Yeah, Mr. Silber, you have anything that you want to go back and forth with?
I don't think so. No, I think I'm all set.
Okay. Is there, Ms. Delvecchio?
Yeah, I think we brought it up before, is the some differences on density and also the 55 plus. I'm not questioning the numbers that are in the study, but I do know that Booth Hill is one of the most overcrowded schools in town, so that is a concern. So just for further conversations to bring that to the table.
I understand.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure I misunderstood what your purpose is right now, but is it to make observations and present them to the attorney, or is it
Whatever
to-
you like, yeah. If you have some commentary, because where we're at now is we are at the end of their application this time, right? We have brought up some questions as to some intended modifications we requested last time that we don't see in physicality right here, and are those options still on the table? And they seem to have some soft ears to that. We just heard from the public on some of their issues that they heard or they see and they wanted to present to us. So anything that we would like to go back and forth on the record with the applicant now, we should do, because in between this hearing and next month's hearing, staff and the applicant will, I'm sure, have conversations about intent and possible modifications. So when we meet next month, we can come back and say, okay, we're ready to go into discussion and any final comment, and then we can get to the P's and Q's of where it may end up. So anything you want to put on the record that you have now, whatever you would choose.
All right, thank you, sir. The one observation I have is the 2,500 intended to make it so it's not, a specific, a site, a parcel specific zone?
It was meant, when looking at it, to make it so that it would not put you in a situation where there are currently that there would be other properties that could qualify that weren't anticipated. Is that the best way to put it? I'm not looking to say that I'm creating a spot zone, but I'm trying to say we looked at an area and thought that with that designation, it would give the commission some safety that somebody would have to put together, buy 10 houses and spend $10 million to get to 10 acres versus.
It's the legal ability to say the options exist somewhere else, but they're not really likely.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I bring it up is because we just did the Teller Road one where I think that the sense of this commission was, yeah, they could do it somewhere else if somebody assembled parcels.
Correct.
So why do we need this in the regulation now? We didn't have it in in the,
Because
Teller Road is
because it-
also kind of, wasn't there, I thought there were some geographical limitations.
I don't want to
on
talk
it.
about Teller Road.
All right,
The
I mean,
reason
let me
for
just-
the reason for this application is so that it encompasses the property they have intent with. It's that simple. They just needed to add a scope beyond their property, so it's not site specific.
but, all right, I don't want to go back and forth. The Teller Road one, I don't recall, when I was here, maybe I spaced out on it, but I don't recall us needing to add, or the developer needing to add a scope beyond their property. They just said, and I specifically asked the question, the attorney said, well, you know,
Because they applied the zone to
Already-
their property.
Well-
The way it was written, it fit on that property. They didn't have to modify
Yeah.
it. The way it's
This
written,
one?
Teller Road,
no,
you're
I know.
combining the two.
And how is that different from this one?
The previous application requested a zone change that met their requirements of where they wanted to put it. This applicant is taking an existing zone that doesn't exactly match where they would like to use it, so they are requesting modifications to that language so it will apply to the area they want it to be, which will include their property.
Understood, thank you. The legal nuance there is like escaping me, but that's fine. I don't want to
The
belabor
difference,
it.
Commissioner Silver, is very simple. They drafted a new reg.
No, I
That
understand.
applied to their
There's
zone.
one existing.
We're
so-
trying to modify, and instead of coming in with our own reg, we thought we could
All right.
agree with what's
Thank you.
currently
You just
there with
clarified
the-
it for me. That's great. I do appreciate that, Attorney Rizzi. I think to your point from before, we're just opening ourselves up by doing that. We're opening ourselves up to other possibilities in that within that half circle, whatever it is. And so, there's probably, I just tried to count them, but there's probably 200 houses, more or less, give or take, that would be in that zone because of the
I mean,
2,500.
you could change it to a property that's on the corner of Unity Road
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Bluefield Road, and then
Yeah.
you know exactly where it is.
All right. I just wanted to, the chairman said, state what you're thinking for the record. So that's one thing that concerns me. I couldn't put, it would be hard for me to say, all these people who live around here, all of a sudden you're in a new zone and your property is in a new zone. And it's like different rules apply now. I'm struggling with that, and I don't know what the change is or how you can work on that with staff, but that's one thing. And, especially, and I'm going to make this final point, especially since we're already changing the zone from on a state road to near a state road. So, and this is just, to me, is yet an additional extension on that. Thank you. I'm all set.
We can work with staff to look to make it as tight as possible.
Okay. Rich.
So, I mean, obviously, your applicant should be able to develop their property, and they desire to do that. If you were able to reduce the density down to something closer, to the half-acre area, that would probably be more palatable to people. That would reduce the number of units. That's going to now reduce your number of potential children. And, we've also had the idea floated tonight of 55 and over, and potentially some small portion of that could still be non-55 and over. So we should, look at all those options would be appreciated.
My clients are here. They've heard all the recommendations, and they understand the severity and sincerity of it. So we will explore all this with staff over the next 30 days.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Rich, let Rob talk for a second. Rich, hold on one second. Okay, Rob.
I would just think, because there were so many questions about the impact study, that you'd have Staniszewski take another look at it and respond to those comments too.
I don't think there were. I don't think they're any accurate.
I think maybe just to solidify that, to make sure
I'll
that.
have them take a look at it, but I'm pretty sure that
Specifically, the three-bedroom comment, that there's so many three-bedroom versus,
that's what the enclave is 3 bedrooms.
All I'm saying is.
It's exactly
just
what the numbers came in at.
Yeah.
Staff just made a comment.
I
The
got you.
answer is yes, we'll certainly do that, Mr.
Of course, Mr.
Planner.
Brandy.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Deacon.
Quick comment. When we're talking, a member of the public mentioned the fact that the current verbiage says that it must be accessed exclusively from a state highway or a state road. We're shifting the meaning of a village residence district. Again, if there was some intent to put development here, I don't know if modifying the village residence district is the ideal way to do this. It's hamstrung by pre-existing conditions in the regulations that were intended for other places. That's not to say that this application, potential application is flawed or good. It's just, I don't know if this is the best avenue to pursue development by modifying something that had a very specific and narrow purpose. And this frontage on a state highway is just a recurring theme, and I understand that there's an exception, and I also understand that there's an issue with the distance, but frontage is an issue.
Commissioner, the problem with that is, as you can see, there are very small modifications had to be made to adapt to the village residence district, which was designed for a specific location. What we don't want to get into is a new reg for every new project, and I think that's kind of what was the impetus of using the village residence district. So I just want you to understand that. It'd be like Town Hall Village node, Long Hill Village node, Main Street node, Middlebrooks Avenue node, White Plains node. We've tried, at least the commission, I know with the Long Hill, we've tried to make it so that we reduce the number of regulations, yet still permit the ability to modify so that when certain projects fit the most of the regulation, you have the ability to still move those forward. But I don't think you want a new regulation every time something else becomes available.
I'm sorry, Attorney, I just wanted to chime in on that. I think he's right on this. We don't, to create a new district for every time something comes in, I don't think that's the point of zoning regulations. You just modify them as whatever developer needs them. It kind of doesn't make sense, but the professional over there might tell me I'm wrong.
I don't think we should be basing the benefits or risks, or whether or not we should approve a modification to the regulations based on how thick the book becomes, or rather the contents of the book.
No, yeah, so, couple things. You all set, Rich? All right, so, did you have anything? I know, I thought I saw you said you were all set. I just want to make sure. Okay, so, just a couple comments, right? So, I'll just stay with the subject that Rich and Tony were just talking about, is people say that zoning commissions are constantly changing rules and regulations for developers. The answer to that is yes. That's our job. Our job is to decide if and when an application comes in for something new or something modified, does it make sense in the place, in the area that's being requested? And, the comic part of that is, if we didn't, there would be some nice old lady in the office with a pass or fail stamp, and we would never change anything, and this place would all still be farms. So that's our role, right? And there are two types of methods, right, which we do understand. And 3, if you use what exists, but if you need something different, you have 2 options. Create it from scratch or modify something that exists. And it is the applicant's choice to choose which one of those paths that they want to go down. And they've chosen to take what exists and make some modifications and ask for it, right? So that's where we are today. So I'm going to do a little synopsis here for myself on what I think I've heard. I heard, the character of the neighborhood from the neighbors. I heard a tremendous amount of concern with some actual builds that are for a future date, right? So what I'd like to concentrate on, and so the public understands that there will be communication between the applicant and staff in between this meeting and the next meeting. And one would hope that the applicant this time has understood the message that was delivered last time, okay? Because it has been delivered again. Less density, okay? Less density. That we need to understand the impact to that neighborhood, and whatever application or whatever modification you can make in over 55 limitations, because you specifically brought it up. We didn't. It ended up getting folded into this conversation several times tonight. There was an over 55 development that came in front of us tonight. It took 6 minutes. Okay? If somebody doesn't understand and receive that message, I can't say it any more specifically, right? So, what is the magic number of over 55? Between the attorneys and the town and staff, you guys are gonna figure out what that number is, whether we're all stuck and handcuffed with that federal regulation that says 8 to 2 if you do it, or if there is some ability between the applicant and the town to come with an application that says, we voluntarily will do this, right? That's what we need to figure out, the over 55. And just common sense, but I'll say it out loud, if and when the 55 language is discussed, it's continuous, it's clustered, they're not gonna be random. There'll be an area of over 55, they would all be together, so that's the area of over 55 in any possible future development, right? Less dense, over 55, and anything else you guys decide, and you're gonna agree to keep the hearing open, correct?
100%.
All right.
Let me make it clear. We respectfully request this hearing be held open, and we waive any statutory timeframes with regard to closing the hearing.
Great. At this time, I'll take a motion to keep the hearing open. Mr. Deacon, is there a second? Mr. Silber, all in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you, everybody, for your time. All right, so now we have, is there a planner's report? You're my hero. All right. Acceptance of the minutes from February.
Through the chair, I read the minutes of February 18th, 2026, and for the first time ever, I have a modification.
Yeah?
Rich Kroll was a full member at the time. He was listed as an alternate.
Ah.
He was sworn in before the meeting started, so.
Yeah, you don't have to defend
It's not-
yourself.
it's not
no, but there's no accusation. Abby takes her minutes very seriously.
But the remainder of the minutes were found to be, of course, in their usual order.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a second? Mr. Silber, thank you. All in favor? Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Motion to adjourn? Wait, Mr. Cordone wants to speak?
Just the project, the vessel project has been appealed to court, and they've also filed for a modification, which will be on the agenda next month. Just make sure you're aware of that.
Okay. Thank you. Means they're suing us and trying to come back for a second bite at the apple at the same time. All right? Okay. Motion to adjourn has been done. All in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you.